I'm going to grab a Will and Whit.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa, and I am the director of the virtual musical of Will and Whit. We're so excited to have our partners, Lauren Larkin, the lyricist, and Laura Lee Gulledge, who wrote both the novel and the musical, with us tonight. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining. This is your second time getting to see this musical, right? Because it premiered at the Virginia Theater Association conference at the end of October. Just a little about the virtual musical, and then we can talk about the creation of the graphic novel into the onstage play. But the virtual musical was something that we wanted to do to bring together students throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia and beyond, because we can't do theater like normal right now. And often when we get together for this annual conference, we will produce a new musical. And so it seemed like a really great to bring together some students and to have a lot of fun. We did this project in a very short time frame. We cast the show, and then about a week later started rehearsals. We rehearsed for 2 weeks. Then we edited for a few days, and this is the result. So we're so excited for you to watch it, and thank you so much for being here. So I'd love to find out a little bit more about the beginnings of Will and Whit. So Laura Lee, I'm really interested in hearing from you a little bit more about the graphic novel, what inspired you to write the story, and then eventually why and how you decided to turn it into a musical.
Oh gosh. I guess I started working on the book. I was living in New York at the time. It's my sophomore graphic novel, and I wanted to do an ensemble story versus one that was so much inside my own head, like my first book. And I set it in Charlottesville because I was sort of missing small town life in the big city and trees and stuff. And Will is sort of like a little alter ego that allowed me to explore some sides of myself that I wanted to work on, like what does feminine strength look like, sort of dealing with my own workaholic hustle addiction, which I'm still working on deprogramming, and some deeper emotional stuff, but in the framework of more of an ensemble story with living shadows. Because also I just love that metaphor for expressing part of yourself, because that's always been my sort of biggest antagonist is myself and my subconscious. So it's first started off as a graphic novel. Things and stuff. I like the blackout section here because that's where the power's out, because I wanted the book to have a sort of a, I don't know, it's interesting in different mediums how to express emotion and tone, whether it's in a theatrical piece or a virtual musical or a comic book. I think it's just so interesting to see how ideas that I maybe started here have then developed and evolved in completely different ways. Because my original inspiration for the characters, Will and Ella, were actually inspired by my great grandmothers. So I sort of took that seed of ancestor vibe, and they just gave me access to a part of myself I wanted to explore. And actually the Huxtaps were in Charlottesville, which I only learned recently. It's like, what? Very strange. My dad actually just gave me a map, not to geek out. I'm knocking myself over. But he just gave me this map of like the area, and there's like Huxtap, like Reverend Huxtap's house, and it's like down by Monticello, and then Charlottesville. It's like really strange. They were like right here. So anyway, oh man, it's Friday the 13th. I'm knocking everything over.
So I also, I'd love to find out where the idea came from to turn this from a graphic novel into a musical, and just how that came about.
Well, I was doing an partnership with Larkin, who I met in New York, and we were both dealing with some parallel creative struggles, as well as people who had major art sparkage. We're like, we must do something. And so we started to collaborate, and I was actually working on the book. And so our conversations about what I was exploring in the book overlapped with what we were talking about as creatives. And then Larkin started getting some ideas.
Yeah, I think Laura Lee was at Comic-Con in San Diego promoting Will and Whit, and we met up afterwards, and I was like, we've got to turn this into a musical, because
we're on the
when I
beach.
was reading it, I was living in San Diego at the time, and when I was reading it, for the first time, I could just hear the characters singing, and I resonated so much. I had had many feelings that I wanted to build lamps and all these things that Will had, different ideas and overcoming obstacles with healing. And I could hear the characters singing. And I said, well, we've just got to do a musical. And she was like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, okay.
Because also we both have a background
to save the...
We both have a background working with kids and young people also. So that is a common interest. Like, yeah, this would be fun to play. Like, this would be fun.
And how long did that process take? And how many people were involved in the process?
Well, when Anais Mitchell won her Tony Award for Hadestown, she says that things take a long time in musical theater. Maybe not if you're doing a virtual musical of Will and Whit. You guys did it really fast and you did a great job. But I think writing a musical, there's so many aspects of it and so many elements that need to get pulled together. So I think we started back in 2013?
I think 2012 was when we were sitting on the beach. Just because I remember that it was that was a dark time. And it took a couple years until we got Juliet and Cece on board, I think. There was definitely a little period where you first talk about an idea, like, wouldn't that be great? And then you just sort of talk about it for a couple of years. And then finally you find other people who you talk about it, like, I have this idea. And then they say, oh, hey, I like that idea. That resonates with me. And you're like, oh, hey. And maybe like a partner. And so it took, I guess, the four of us.
I almost never reach out to people on Facebook that I don't know, or I didn't used to anyway. But I was like, well, my partner Laura Lee's best friends with this girl Juliet, so I better introduce myself to her, because her best friend I should know. And then so I went to introduce myself to her. It turns out she's a great musician, and her whole philosophy and her whole doctoral studies that she's earned since the time we started is in mindfulness. So she became our dramaturg, and she helped write many of the songs, and she brought Cece Vaughn on board, and Cece and Juliet would meet in the same room. And then I was all the way across the country, and we just started writing the songs. And I think we wrote 5 or 6 of the songs really quickly together. And then I came to Charlottesville a couple of times for long weekends, and we just sat at Cece's piano and pounded songs out, and then we'd go back to Juliet's house and write more lyrics, and then go back the next day. And little by little, just all the pieces fell together, and all the other partners came together, like even people we don't necessarily always talk about, but one of the first partners that we had is named Whitney, and she helped us transcribe all the music into sheet music, and that got us started. And then Cece went through and did everything. So there's a lot of different pieces that go into it.
In comics, I always talk about how it's like a pendulum where you're going between words and pictures. And I feel like that this process is taking that model and just like multiplies. It's like, okay, so I started with the book with words and pictures, but then you guys wrote songs, and then they handed me the songs and I wrote the script. And then we sort of like passed it back, and then like we worked like, oh, we need to balance this out. And so it was like this kind of cool dance, like passing it around, like partner hot potato.
Yeah. And I remember in 2017 when when Dreams Made Real Productions moved into Belmont, you, Melissa Charles, directed the first stage production in Charlottesville of Will and Whit at a really important time for Charlottesville. And and important time for DMR and for Belmont. And, you know, that was a major timeline for us because we were like, we've got to get you everything that you need for this show. And that was really like the karaoke tracks and the guide tracks. You know, that was our thought was like, well, okay, well, we have to get all this stuff ready for Melissa. And then it was just so cool that you in turn have directed the first virtual show.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like wild.
Couldn't ask for a better partner because of your talent as a director. I mean,
well,
you
thank
really
you so
have.
much. And you know, it took me time too, because Bree Luck is the person that she was the artistic director of Live Arts, our local community theater in downtown Charlottesville. And she contacted me to say, you know, I think you should listen to this script. It might be something you'd be interested in. And I knew immediately. I think I listened to 10 seconds of Lights On, the first song, and I had chills, and I just knew that I wanted to be involved, but I had no idea what that looked like. And at the time, DMR just had a little studio. I mean, it really wasn't, it was maybe 20 by 14. We didn't have any kind, smaller than that really. We didn't have any kind of performance space. And so I didn't know what it would look like. We talked about it being a summer camp and maybe a production that came out of that. And then as I started a different project and built a theater, I thought, what an amazing project that would be for the theater. And it's a black box theater, and it really lends itself well to doing a show with a small number of students, especially student actors, because they don't have to be mic'd and in that space, which is really important to me. I love hearing those voices. And we had such incredible singers, and so I thought, let's try it. And we had a great turnout for the auditions. It was like exactly the number of people that we needed for the show, and it just fit perfectly, the casting of that original show. And some of the students, interestingly, also helped. One of the students specifically helped with the choreography in that original production. And its virtual production, I gave even more over to the students to help with choreography and concepts and video ideas. And so our cast really is responsible for a lot of the creation. And Laura Lee, it's funny when you talk about that dance, because I feel like the virtual musical, for me as the director, it's a similar dance. Just anytime you're doing a piece of theater, when you're working with actors and you're sharing ideas about characters. But what's different about doing a virtual production is there's an editor who's involved. And so I have to just trust that the editor is going to take my vision and my ideas and bring those to life. And our editor, Justin, did just such an amazing job. He did both the sound editing and much of the video editing. Really, it was good. Yes,
I approve.
He can't be here right now because he's conducting a musical at this exact time in Indiana. So we're really
so awesome.
Hey, Justin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin. And then because we did this virtually, and I'm interested to know, Larkin, what that was like for you. Did you, since you were not in the same place with a composer, did you all work over Skype, or did you use Zoom? Back then it was just in its beginnings. How did you communicate with each other?
I think we used Google Hangouts or Skype, and and Juliet and Cece would be in the same room. Juliet would have her cello. On the tracks, we have Cello Joe playing and beatboxing the cello, but Juliet wrote all of that cello music and is really quite instrumental. The way dramaturgs are amazingly instrumental to how things turn out. Because they have a larger vision, because Juliet knows Laura Lee's history with art. And, you know, and this isn't Laura Lee's only graphic novel. I mean, even this year she had The Dark Matter of Mona Starr come out, and all of her graphic novels. And I just got the Burlington Public Library to buy 20 copies for the class I'm working with. And we're doing a whole self-care healing residency. But what I really love about her artwork is it just really speaks to me. And and it helps me want to sing, and it makes me helps me want to heal, you know. And I don't want you guys to have to go too deep into it, but, you know, during that first production, there was a lot of commotion in Virginia, with shootings and crazy fascist people, and just the feeling of unsafety basically right where you were doing the show. And now with COVID and with, you know, everything that's happening politically, you know, it feels kind of like a hurricane sometimes, this world that we live in. And so I just love that there's just so many amazing characters. It's not just one good character. It's a bunch of amazing characters, all mostly portrayed by women, or can be played by any sort of expression of gender, whether it be non-binary or like all the roles can be cast kind of however. But, you know, just so many of these characters have healing moments and songs. And I feel like I've witnessed audiences, cast members and crew members, but then also audiences have this, like, have a cathartic effect, the way it feels when you're reading a Laura Lee graphic novel, you know. And I think that that's just the most beautiful thing, is the rippling kind of healing effect that this work can have. And for a musical, not just to be, oh, we're just going to do it because it's cute and funny, and it kind of is like this movie that I saw one time, you know, or whatever. It's like, it really has some deep messages that hit home for me consistently.
Yeah. I wanted to make a story that was about, I was like, well, of course you always write what you want to past tense you. So I wanted to write a book to help me deal with things that I was scared of, which was, of course, death and change, because really death is change. And really, because I was terrified of change, and I was because I was sort of like, you know, like I've always been a little bit curmudgeon-y about like certain technology and things. And so, but I wanted to dip it in like a fun summer story, because also I want to make it easier for me to deal with, because like both my parents are alive. And so I was like, what am I going to do when I lose my parents? So I feel like art gives you an opportunity to sort of deal with things that you want to deal with. Even it's like, oh, so my parents, yeah, they're alive. And I've not, you know, like I'm not a survivor of like a major hurricane or disaster or anything, but still there's like trauma that we have. And so I wanted to just create a simple sort of small version of the bigger picture issues, because I feel like that's what art should help us deal with, is how to stay here instead of just pure escapism. That's nice sometimes. What about just working together and not being so isolated?
I think one of the other things that I really love about the musical too is that there's so many roles for people that are young. Growing up in musical theater, I always played somebody who was older. I think the youngest character I ever played was like Seidel, you know, or something in Fiddler on the Roof. And that's like, she's 18, and maybe that's close to what my age was then too. But I mean, from third grade up, I was like getting married on stage. I think I got married like 10 times on stage, you know? So it's kind of nice. It's just nice that it's kids, and that the music can be modern music. I mean, our composer is really inspired by popular music, and you know, and in that way it can just be really timely and relevant for people.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to shift now and introduce a couple of our cast members. So I'm going to bring in Jackson and Annalisa. Jackson played Noel, and Annalisa was Brittany. Welcome. Thanks for being here with us. And you just experienced the second viewing. Was it different this time for you?
Last time I was rushing home because my dad thought it was a really great time to get pizza. This time was a lot more laid back. I noticed small things I didn't notice before, so that was nice.
And Jackson, did you notice anything in the show this time that you didn't realize the last time? Did anything surprise you tonight?
No, not really. I don't like watching myself, so every time I was in a big number, I had to leave the room. But
oh no! Yes. It's hard, and both of you have mostly done theater. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you done any
Yes.
kind of on-camera acting prior to this, or was this one of your first
No.
forays?
Yeah, I think this was the first. I had a few shows where my mom would like stay in film so I could self-critique. But somehow that like wasn't, it was just weirder to see myself where it was like I was supposed to be filmed. I don't know how to explain it, but it was stranger. Not worse, just weird.
I would love for the two of you to chat a little bit with our audience and future audiences, because this is being kind of recorded and will be replayed, about what the experience was like for you, both working on a virtual musical as well as working with cast members you'd never met before, who were from all over.
Part of it is probably nice because we are all pretty young, so we are pretty comfortable with getting to know people just through social media, and we're kind of able to connect. And then like in between filmings for things, people will just kind of mess around or say like, "Oh, hey, I have this bag of chips here. Thoughts?" So you're still able to, I think, kind of get along really well.
And Jackson, can you talk a little bit about that process of what it was like just working on the show for those joining us who may not know what it means to put on a virtual musical? Can you explain a little bit about what was different or similar to doing a stage production?
So in this show, we had to, I know what I did is I learned my songs first, and because we got to have our scripts in front of us, right? We didn't necessarily have to learn our lines. We still did learn about the intention of our characters and what they were trying to get and all that, but we were more focused on learning our songs and all that. So what we did for our songs is we would by ourselves record us singing on voice memos while we were listening to a backtrack in headphones, so that there wouldn't be any feedback when you're recording. And then you would later record in costume in your scene to the song, just lip syncing. That's kind of what I have to say. Is there anything else you want to hear?
I think that's great. Thanks, Jackson. And Lisa, I'm interested to know a little bit, because you were in a group, an ensemble, and even though your character definitely has a specific role in the show and in the graphic novel, in the play, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what it was like working as an ensemble when you weren't in person with the other girls.
Everyone was really supportive. Like we had our group chat, and every time someone threw out an idea, we were like, yes, I love it. And in the group rehearsals, once again, when that was really collaborative about ideas for costumes and for choreography, and everyone just kind of watched what each other was doing and be like, oh, I really like that one thing that you did. And it was, you had to make some choices. Who is next to you or below you, but I think everyone made those choices and really had fun with it, so it ended up working out well.
And great, thank you. And can you talk a little bit about making choices and character development? Was that different in this virtual environment? What were the differences that you've had from other shows with creating your character?
This was like a faster rate to make those choices, but something about this musical in particular is that there was a lot of room for that, and no one was really based on one trope. I think you got a lot of information about each character, and through that you can make those choices, and you had lines that could be interpreted in a lot of different ways. I was first reading through the script, and my mom was downstairs and like, oh, look at this first line. Cats, I thought we were bees. And yeah, I guess it just kind of trying to have fun with it while you're reading through the lines.
And I'd love to hear from either one of you a little bit more about what drew you to participating and auditioning for this? Was it the story, the music, something about the characters? Could either of you speak about what it was that made you excited to participate in this project?
Well, for me, I know my mom sent it to me through Facebook, and I was going through like the resources, and the music that it had, I loved. I thought it was really different and really new, and I instantly kind of connected with that. And I also thought the characters, when reading through it, were really fun and also really, really relatable. And yeah, I was reading through them like, oh, I would love to play that. Oh, and also her, and also kind of noticing that there was room for different ethnicities and different genders that I really liked. I was like, oh, I want to support that. I don't see that very often. And that instantly was like, okay, these are the right people to be with.
I'm so glad to hear that. Jackson, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was kind of feeling the same as her. I liked the diversity in the cast, and I missed theater a lot, and it was an opportunity to practice theater when in quarantine. I was excited about the character of Noelle. I had never had a lead role in any musicals, so I was very excited to get to participate in that way. Yeah, I was just excited about the different characters. And also everyone at DMR seemed really kind and accepting, so that also drew me to it.
That's great. And if you had a special challenge, I guess, or maybe it was a fun adventure of playing someone in a romantic relationship and having a virtual kiss, would you be willing to talk a little bit more about what that was like?
It was definitely interesting having to get around the hurdles. Like I said, I've never played a lead role, so I've obviously never played the romantic interest. But it was fun to get to play a cheesy, loving character that is actually quite similar to me. We had to get creative. From day one, we were trying to figure out how to do the kiss, and I think it turned out pretty okay. How we did it. Really, with everything virtual, everything virtual theater-wise, you just have to get creative. And that's it. That's all you can do.
Virtual cooties.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Jackson and Annalisa, for joining us and for being a part of the production and for joining us for the Talkback. Thank you so much. And I can stay on and talk with Laura Lee and Larkin just a little bit longer. Okay, thanks for hanging in. Oh, wonderful. I see that you have one of the props from the original production, Laura Lee, or the works.
Yeah, actually, this was Noel's in Blue Crush in the behind the scenes, because the original version was more based on the graphic novel, with the shadow version of them acting out something different than the real life version. But that's like more of a stage production sort of thing.
Yes, although it was fun for.
I also have a firefly jar.
I do want to say that, so not right before, because you guys did it in 2017. When we had first started getting the musical together, we got an invitation from the director of the grad school program that I went to at Brooklyn College. His name's John Janone, and his family's owned this camp in Camptown, Pennsylvania. Camptown races 2 by 2, like where Irving Berlin wrote that song. And we went and stayed for 4 weeks.
Because he's my cousin.
Oh, sorry. Stephen Foster. Sorry, Stephen Foster. And did the show. And our kids were not just in our show, but they were in like a million different other activities too. So we had to fight to get them to rehearsal and such. But it was a really good chance to just put it on its feet and see. And I think both Laura Lee and I had like emotional breakdowns at this camp, because it was so challenging to take this work that's so important to us and watch it just, the end performance was great, and it's online on YouTube and you can see it. But the process of it was really challenging. and for a variety of reasons, but really because you're sitting there watching your baby graphic novel get butchered.
I just never had heard my words out loud, because one reason that I chose the path of being a visual storyteller was because you don't have to say it out loud. Something about saying your truth out loud is a hell of a lot scarier than just writing it down like in your journal that happens to be drawn out as a comic book. You know?
Well, we got some really talented kids in this production, and the young lady that we cast as Ava, who was then a sophomore in high school, went on to play Ava in our New York City workshop. She earned the role there rightly. And then now she's at University of Utah, and she's directing a production of Will Whit that's going to go up in December. They're in rehearsals now. And so it's just so cool because Melissa is a veteran to our show, having directed the first official stage production that was outside of our hands. And Rachel Malaga is a veteran to our show, and so it's just so cool to have these artners that are our Artner allies who really know the show in and out, and we can just trust to just bring it to life, in the best way that we can under the circumstances, and I feel like this was definitely the best virtual musical I've ever seen.
This was incredible. There was so much happening. I feel like there were so many pieces that you brought in that added to the story. Like, I gotta say, the exposition at the beginning with like the car crash stuff, very helpful. I feel like that's kind of confusing. And like that hurricane footage, like with unplugged. Oh my gosh, like it made it like super relevant to now, especially because we're in hurricane season. So I feel like that all these extra pieces that are added in is just making it better. It's like a really good stew. And maybe the more people who work on it, then we'll have sort of more tools in the toolbox.
Well, I agree. It was so, there's a lot more challenges doing something virtually. You can't run and get your props and your people and just make quick decisions. But I work with somebody who always says boundaries are freeing. And I think that's very true. So you have a limited time, you have a limited budget, you have, for this, it was really nothing. And you have limited everything. And so, but something happens that's wonderful when you have all those boundaries, because that's when like the real creativity comes to life. So I just got an email with a lot of questions. I wanted to answer some. So the actors do all their own costumes? And the answer is yes. All of our actors were the costume designers. So we collaborated as a group. We talked about when this was set. Was it set at the time the graphic novel was written, or was it set now? And so we decided it's contemporary, but we're just going to ignore COVID. So that was our ideas. Like, we've had enough of COVID, so we're agreeing together that we're just ignoring that. We're kind of ignoring the fact that we're online, and we are just going to live in that world. So yes, they came up with all their own concepts. And we did have a couple of actors who love lighting or love costuming, who helped some of the other actors, some people that were having issues, that just didn't know what to choose. So they, some of those people were so wonderful. We had an actor in our cast who came up with some color concepts and sketched out some ideas for each of the characters. I'll have to share that with y'all. It was really amazing. And then also some actors who would give help to others about how to set up their cameras or lighting, things like that in their room to kind of get more of a desired effect. And the section, here's another question. The section where they're singing in the chorus, was that edited together or did they record it at the same time? So yes, that was recorded separately. As Jackson was saying earlier, every song in the show had some moment where there were multiple people singing. So what that meant is they couldn't really sing in real time. So we recorded them separately and put them together. And the unplugged chorus just turned out so beautiful. Our music director, Keely Scott, was brand new to this project, didn't know the musical. She's a college student, and I just for some reason, thought it would appeal to her. I'd worked with her on a different project this summer, and she jumped at the opportunity. And I'm so proud of the work that she did with our actors and our singers, and because many of them, their voices are transitioning right now. They're all in middle and high school, you know, and so she worked with all of them with any questions they had or issues they had, and that Unplugged course, she also recorded each of their parts so that they could really listen to it very, very clearly and neatly. So I think because she did a different recording for each different voice part, that sounded just so clean and beautiful. And then of course we also had the wonderful resources that were put together for our stage production with the karaoke tracks and with the beautiful instrumentals. So all of those things really, you know, the hard work, it feels like it's paying off, you know, all of those resources, the motion comic that was created a long time ago, the banjo version of Unplugged Summer, we were able to incorporate into this with Desmond's video. So it's really neat to see how things kind of, that maybe we weren't able to use in the stage production, they were able to be used in this way, and that was really exciting. So yeah, those are some of our questions. I just want to get to talking about the fact that I think everyone should be doing this musical, and you can find out more about it.
WillandWhit.com.
Yes, WillandWhit.com for information about licensing. I've never done these banners before, y'all, so I don't know how to make them. Okay. So please go there, and you can do, am I right, y'all? We can do in person or over virtual or a hybrid, like a combination of both. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
And there's all kinds of really fun ideas for STEAM arts integration with the LED props. I loved seeing the fireflies. You know, this is the first time I've ever heard the shortened virtual versions of the songs sung. And I liked them just as much or better. I think with Zafiro, I wished it was a little long. I wish it was a little longer, but just for the length of the show, it needs to be what it is for right now. But other than that, I was just super thrilled, and especially with with, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of what our name of the song is. It's called So Can I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just loved the ensemble and So Can I. I just thought they were so adorable.
I made a note about that because at one point I thought that Desmond in the woods singing to Will was a little bit too creepy, what? Oh, you know. So actually, it's so much richer now. It's totally, yeah. It's just amazing how so easily you can change the tone of a situation with the ecosystem of characters and voices that you have.
Right. I don't think we'd ever seen that number, because with a musical, what I never realized growing up as an actor and kind of like a performer is I never realized that with a musical, you know how sometimes every time you get your libretto and you get your sheet music and then you get your tracks to listen to, and they're all a little different. Like the lyrics are a little different in the libretto, or the sheet music's a little different than the thing. And you're kind of who threw in this weird joke, or how did this all happen? And it's because there's just so many people involved in so many revisions that you're trying to find what the best version is. And it's not until you figure that out that then everything maybe gets solved, or just the productions themselves have to decide, how it's going to go.
So you can join us on this Muppet bus / yes train. Toot toot.
Well, thank you for being so open to any ideas we had. This particular show, our Autumn was Latinx, and so the person playing Autumn was willing to and interested in translating some of the lyrics, and that really kind of helped so much with some character development, not just from the character of Autumn, but all of the people that circle around Autumn, and especially Blake. It helped to make some decisions about what to do with that character. So thank you so much for being open to some changes. And I guess one thing we didn't talk about was the fact that the stage version of the show, the original version, was closer to maybe an hour and 40 minutes there was an intermission. And so the idea was to cut down to about an hour. And so we got there. I ended up added back a couple of songs because I just really wanted to showcase our ensemble and showcase some of our students even more in this production. And so thanks for letting me do that as well. But we also love the shortened versions of the songs. I think it worked really well.
Melissa, can I ask you what it was like to have castmates from as far as the Philippines? Like, just, did you ever think that when you put this audition out that you were going to get auditions from people in other countries? I mean,
definitely not. So Julia, who was the first person who auditioned, she was the first person who sent an audition tape from the Philippines. And I loved her audition right away. And I thought, oh, she really could be Ava. But I thought, let's see everybody else first. And then when it became clear that she would really be a special and unique Ava, I reached out and said, is the time zone, you're 12 hours different. So what can you make it to rehearsals? Because our rehearsals were also just based on actor availability. We didn't have a set rehearsal because we had such a short time. It was like, everyone in this scene, when can you rehearse? We need to get it done in the next 2 days. And we just made it happen. And I tell you, you just never would have known because she was so committed. All of the actors were so committed. And for me, that was really a fulfilling moment. We moved to virtual programming. I shut down my studio March 13th, the last Friday the 13th that we had. This is another Friday the 13th, so it's kind of a special, interesting thing. We shut down that day due to COVID, and within a week, we were up and running doing classes every single day, free classes for the community, and trying to continue some of the programs that we already had going on. And by the time we get around to the summer and fall, yes, students were feeling burnout, both from doing things online, academically, as well as feeling like it's not the same, those kinds of things. And so it's hard for me as someone who runs a whole academy to have our student numbers diminish and to have people that are reticent about performing virtually. And this production was so fulfilling for me because we had completely committed actors who were so excited to be able to have the opportunity to do the show, to work with people from all over. And so it was really fantastic to feel like, we were in an ensemble together, we were collaborators, and everybody involved wanted to be there. And so it was just the thing that I really needed at this time. I didn't know I needed. So thank you for the opportunity. And it was just wonderful to meet all of these students. And, I'm so excited to follow everything they do, whether it's, whether they're continuing in theater or not. They're all such interesting people, and we learned so much about each other so quickly because of the type of character development that we had to do. So I'm looking forward to staying in touch with them. And again, thank you both so much for bringing this art to the world and for making it accessible to so many people. I hope that more and more people will to do the show. You can go to willwhit.com for information about licensing. I believe there's more information there. And yes, Laura Lee, where can we find your graphic novel and more information about your other work?
My website, I don't have my little sign, is whoislauralee.com. That's where you can get signed copies of my books from me. So I have 3 graphic novels and 1 interactive sketchbook that are available. If you're in Charlottesville, tomorrow I'm doing a little pop-up virtual / kind of in-person event at the Bridge called WomCon, which is a woman Comic-Con. And so it's 3 people. So wow, it's Comic-Con with 3 people. But we have 4 virtual sisters, partners, who are also joining us. So yeah. And I also have them locally at McGuffey Art Center. I know they're in there, but they're also on the interwebs. My publisher is Abrams, so they're pretty accessible. I'm pretty lucky as an author. That's one reason that I wanted to share the stories, because I'm like, they don't belong to me anyway. They just like, I feel like we got to reframe how we own these things and like what is set in stone, and that it's all malleable, and it's a conversation, and it's art's supposed to evolve. So it's exciting.
Thank you for the Virginia Theater Festival.
Yes, I do want to give a shout out to the Virginia Theater Association. You can find out more. You can donate at virginiatheater.org. And they do amazing work. I'm so happy to be involved in the Theater for Youth division, but there's also professional and college, technical theater, secondary school, and middle school divisions. And I'm sure I'm leaving something out because there's so much that the Virginia Theater Association does. And we're so grateful to be able to premiere this musical at our conference this year. It made the virtual conference really special for so many people, both the students involved as well as their friends and teachers. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. And thank you for everything. Again, I'm just going to show the Will Whit information because I hope many schools and community theaters and arts academies will produce this show. Whether you do it now, virtually, or in person in the future, or a little bit of both. I think it's a great piece for you to work on. Our students absolutely loved it. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to Annalisa and Jackson for joining us earlier. And thanks to everybody who's involved in our production. I just want to give a special shout out to Trudy, our stage manager, who also did a ton of work. I didn't really recognize her tonight, and she really rocked, as well as Fallon, who helped us with some of our publicity. So thanks to everybody who was involved. And of course, Denise, who played Ella, she helped with casting, was a member of our Theater for Youth division. So thanks to Deb Clinton, our president, and thanks to all of you for watching and participating. And I look forward to seeing many more productions of this show. And can we see the production that Rachel's doing? Can we see that anyway?
Yes, it's going to be through University of Utah, and it'll be the 5th through the 7th of December. So if you check out willandwhit.com, we'll post information there. There's also a Facebook group for Will and Whit Project, as well as Artner, the Artners Project. So all of those places will post information about Rachel's show and all shows that are coming up. And the kit will just keep getting stronger. And, you know, Melissa, I know that everybody worked really hard and you set the bar really high, even when you put out the call for auditions. But you really deserve a pat on the back because you're an amazing director. And I can't wait to work with you again, maybe when we have Mona Star the musical, or whatever some of the next incarnations are, even ones that I don't know yet. But I would absolutely adore partnering with you in the future. And just thank you so much for all of your really genius and talented and hard work and commitment through all of the transitions, you know, personally and in community and everything that's going on. You're the rock. So we really love you and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. It's just really my honor to be a part of this. And I hope to work, and we've never met in person, so I can't wait for the time for us to get together. All three of us. That will be so fun to meet in person. So I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you again for joining us tonight. We're going to look for more information in December about Rachel's production, and I can't wait to see more and more productions come forth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.